You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I am your host, Skyler Timmons, and joined here once again, it's Evan Lang.
Well, hi there.
Howdy ho. We are coming to you, whatever day this is, middle of the December, holidays coming up for everybody in various capacities for people. The winter meetings just wrapped. We have a lot to talk about, Evan. The Rockies have been doing stuff. So we're going to keep our Denver sports roundup here really quick, Evan. And that probably can be summarized as such. Broncos are still doing good. I'm currently playing the
Broncos good. Avs good. Nuggets trucking along.
Nuggets hanging in there.
They're playing fine on the road. It's just getting the home wins taken care of for whatever reason.
And rejoice, the Chiefs are officially eliminated from the playoffs since 2014. So take that, Taylor Swift.
Before Christmas, the Kansas City Chiefs are eliminated. Not just out of the running for the division, they're done. They cannot make the playoffs, and that is just delightful.
Yes, it is. The world will erupt, Evan, when that happens to the Dodgers next. If that ever happens again.
It's how we will know that there is still good in this world, is if the Dodgers are ever eliminated from playoff contention.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much your Denver sports to round up. Everybody's still chugging along, doing their thing, winning games, doing good stuff. Nathan McKinnon's still an MVP. Jokic still plays like an MVP.
Goalie's still playing well.
Stuff out.
Broncos defense, very good. There is one quick thing I wanted to mention before we dive in, because like Skyler said, we do have a lot to talk about today. Just as a heads up, you may have seen on various social media platforms, the beloved Coors Field cat, also known as Socks, has not been seen in a few weeks, where they're trying to figure out where she might have gone to. If you've seen her, if you have any information, give it a shout out on social media. See if we can assist in tracking her down.
There you go. But speaking of tracking things down, Evan, the Rockies have been doing a lot of finding themselves among people as they wrapped up the winter meetings. Ton of coaching announcements as Warren Schaefer's staff continues to take shape, and the front office is getting some more also tweaking in there as well. But we'll dive into all of that stuff in our various segments. But this first one, kind of an overarching thing, just kind of wrapping up the winter meetings in general. And then we'll dive into the specifics of the pitching announcements and then also hitting coach announcements and other stuff. But winter meetings overall, Evan, over those past couple days, what was your main takeaway from just the Rockies' presence at the winter meetings in general? They really didn't do anything move-wise. There's one specific that we'll get to in a minute. But other than that, it was a lot of coaching stuff and whatever else.
Yeah, nothing particularly shocking from the Rockies at the Rule 5. Not the Rule 5 draft. Well, yeah, in the Rule 5 draft. But the Rockies at the winter meetings did pretty much everything we were kind of expecting them to. Like we mentioned over the last couple of weeks, no real major signings or trades or anything like that. Their Rule 5, I keep saying it, their winter meetings were going to be focused on the Rule 5 draft, and rounding out their coaching staff and front office. And they're still not entirely done with the coaching staff and front office, but we have a much clearer picture of what this organization is going to look like in terms of philosophy-wise, in terms of coaching, in terms of front office, going into the 2026 season.
Yeah, and it seemed like, if anything, it was kind of them continuing to just put their name out there as an organization. It was No, Josh Burns had just barely been put in as the GM, and I know DePodesta is still figuring things out. He's a month into the job type of thing. This is his second round of meetings type of thing, but it was at least nice to hear. Yeah, they were talking to some people. We got a little bit of idea of stuff they're looking for, particularly like, maybe adding some starting pitching in some way, some experienced starting pitching, maybe sticking some experienced regulars into the lineup somewhere, like first base. DePodesta had some conversations with those guys, with some agents about first baseman and stuff. So they were there doing things, but not a whole lot. So it was really the coaching stuff and front office stuff that we came out of that week. They did way more there in that department than they did any in player development or like the actual player roster stuff. But it heard a lot of conversations. And what stuck out to you between any of the interviews you heard with DePodesta or Burns or with Warren Schaefer? What you mentioned earlier, like kind of the direction the Rockies are looking. What was that direction takeaway that you got?
I think to start is the fact that there was that many interviews, that much openness that we heard from a bunch of different people throughout the winter meetings. That is already a huge step in the right direction. We are leaning into a Rockies front office that is much more open, much more transparent, is actually talking about the things that they want to do and want to see. And the big message, the big takeaway from everybody at the winter meetings, from DePodesta to Burns to Warren Schaefer, was basically building a foundation in terms of player development, in terms of figuring out what they want to do with this team going forward. And a lot of it has been pulling in people from all over baseball, from outside of the organization, with a variety of different skills, a variety of different backgrounds, but the most common denominator with everybody has been backgrounds in scouting and player development.
Yeah. Yeah, and not
And
even just that, but like experience with analytics and that aspect of the game and knowing how to help develop players using analytics. That's a common thread through everybody that we'll talk about, that they're pretty experienced in that. And so a real concerted effort by DePodesta and Burns, Warren Schaefer as well to an extent, is that it's the focus on we've got to improve our development. We've got to work with what we have in-house and make players better. That's where it starts. And yeah, as much as I was talking to somebody today, Evan, I was like, I would like them to start, bringing in players now. They've done all these coach stuff, but we've seen players leave the roster. But I wanted to see more action on the other aspect of it. But it's interesting. You have to have that foundation of knowing how to make your players better, regardless of who you bring in, knowing how to make players better. And that was the concerted effort in the winter meetings.
yeah, and I do think the roster moves are coming. I think part of it was and still is the huge, I don't want to say disadvantage, but how far behind Paul DePodesta and his front office were in terms of being able to make those kinds of moves.
The front office procrastination.
Yeah, where if this had been done so much earlier before the winter meetings had started, maybe we would have seen some trades, maybe we would have seen some moves. But right now, they're still on that ground floor, as it were, building the foundation for what they're going to do for the season. And I do think it's possible that we see some roster moves coming up this next week. If we don't see any next week, it's probably going to be after New Year's, since the Christmas holidays coming up. But they have made moves in terms of having people depart the organization, like you said. Drew Romo gone, Anthony Molina, some of the other former prospects and things like that. Ryan Rollison, Warming Bernabel. And now it's just waiting and seeing who they're going to bring in. And it's not necessarily going to be any huge, big name free agents or anything like that, but they have put forward, hey, here's what we're looking for. It's going to be starting pitching. It's going to be first base, potentially second base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they made one pick in the Rule 5 draft. We can touch on him first. Then we'll get to a new assistant GM. But In terms of the draft stuff, as expected, the Rockies will pick 10th in the player draft in the first round. They have the 10th overall pick because of the CBA rules and the draft lottery. They were ineligible to get the number 1 pick. But hey, number 10, still not terrible. You're in the top 10. You could still get a good player there in that pick. So, as much as it sucks to not have one of those top ones after the season we've had, hey, you're still in the top 10. It could be worse.
Yeah. And you have, a top 10 pick in every other round after the first round.
Yeah, then you have the first pick in every round after that.
Which makes it sting at least a little bit less.
Yeah.
Especially when you are in such a rebuild that the Rockies are. That very first round pick, it does matter. It's extremely important. But you're at one of those points where you don't just have to hit on that first round pick. You've got to hit on pretty much all of your picks because you need to be rebuilding this farm system, which, as we've discussed over the last many, many months, is a lot weaker than we thought it was coming into the season last year. And especially with a new front office, with new guys helming the draft, with new people and new organizational philosophies, I think the kinds of players that they might pick are probably going to be quite different from what we have seen.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but still top 10. Could be worse. Hey, well, congrats to the White Sox getting their first pick that they weren't eligible to get last year. So, we're in 2025. So, it may be next year, Evan. Who knows? The world will balance itself out, and then we'll have the lockout, and it won't matter. But they did have a number 1 overall pick in the Rule 5 draft, and they used it to pick an absolute mountain of a man out of the Detroit Tigers system, right-handed pitcher, standing in at 6'8", roughly between 250 to 300 pounds, somewhere in that range. A big boy, RJ Petit. We'll figure that out. But RJ Petit, everything that his name says, except he's a big man, right-handed reliever out of the Tiger system. Evan, thoughts on their Rule 5 pick?
I love this pick. First of all, I want to know where the J comes from, because his full name is Robert George. So where's that J coming from? But overall, I'm surprised that this is a player that they left unprotected. It might be because he's a little bit older. He just turned 26 a couple months ago. But he has consistently been one of their better relievers in their farm system for the past several seasons. He had one pretty rough season in 2021, his first professional season coming out of the draft, where he was a 14th round pick. But then after that, he's been consistently very good. He hasn't posted a combined season ERA over 4 since that first season. And had a really, really nice debut in AAA with the Toledo Mud Hens last season, where he posted an ERA of 2.74 in 20 appearances and 23 innings. He racks up the strikeouts. He had 33 strikeouts during that time. And I think that's why the Rockies targeted him much more than, the last big name they took in the Rule 5 draft, Anthony Molina, who had experience at AA, but not a ton of experience in AAA. This is a guy who already has a proven track record in AAA, and the Rockies are looking for young relievers who can be immediate impact kind of guys, along with the younger guys that are already in the bullpen. Your Seth Halversons, your Victor Vodniks, your Jaden Hills. He fits right in with that age range and ability. And while Pettit's never really been a top-ranked prospect in their system, he's got a lot of really interesting stuff in terms of his pitch arsenal and in terms of what he does. He's got a very, very solid fastball, but where he really performs is with his breaking pitches. He's got a good changeup, but his slider, which Baseball America said is more like a, and I quote, death ball curveball, because it's got negative vertical break, is a really good pitch. It's one of his best pitches. He's used it to great effect during his time in the minors. And I really like what Baseball America said about him. What they said is, from a strictly performance-based evaluation, Pettit checks a number of boxes. He strikes out batters. He shows at least average command. He's flashed the ability to generate ground balls at above average rates, and it's a solid sample of AAA experience. This combination puts him in a better bucket than 50% of potential Rule 5 draft picks. And I think that's why the Rockies went for him, is he's got that combination of basically everything they're looking for. He's a guy where they have to have him on the roster so he can be an immediate impact guy. He can strike out batters, and we know that there's been, at least they're trying to push more towards strikeouts versus the constant ground ball rate, but ground balls are still important. This is a guy who can get them. They think his pitches are going to work well at Coors Field. I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, and no, I think they kind of mentioned too that he could be expected to be kind of a bulk reliever, fill in that middle inning roles, eat a couple innings perhaps, or even pitches. He could pitch his way into the back end of the bullpen and fill in as a closer role. So big, tall guy. He's a presence on the mound. He throws strikes. I think Sterling Monfort was really high on him. I'm sure one of the new pitching individuals that came into the organization from the Tigers had a lot to say, like, yeah, let's take this guy. But yeah, a big, tall man on the mound immediately as a presence. You've already won the intimidation factor. But the fact that he can work down the plane, doesn't have to use a lot of extension, and just using his massive size to his advantage, he throws down in the zone, can throw down in the zone, and has a good slider. It's probably his best pitch and everything. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he fits in, and hopefully he does well, and especially under the new regime.
He's a big boy. And has a incredible mustache. Like, his mustache is about as intimidating as the rest of him.
Yes, please let him have that mustache. Please let him have that mustache.
Yeah, I want Zach Agnos to come back with his mustache next year and have like a 1-2 punch of Agnos and Pettit. Just the mustache bros.
Mm-hmm.
And Vodnik's had a mustache recently too. Let's just get everybody in the bullpen to have a mustache.
Mm-hmm. Sure, why not?
I mean, the Rockies have been an organization stuck in the past for a long time. So maybe we can do an 80s and 70s throwback with the bullpen. Everybody's got to have a mustache.
If they can grow one.
If they can grow one. There are definitely
it's a good thing Jordan Beck's not a reliever.
He's trying.
He's trying. It ain't working. But yeah, so it's a big pick. And then, they took a minor leaguer in one of the minor league rounds, lost a couple of minor league pitchers, really nothing to really write home about, nothing to worry about. But yeah, we'll see how it works out with that Rule 5 pick. But I think the big thing, Evan, that we'll close out this segment with, let's touch on, they did hire an assistant general manager to really help focus on scouting and player development. And they snagged Tommy Tanis from the New York Mets. He's going to come over from them and pretty much be there to help really oversee scouting and player development, really have a hand in the draft and scouting and everything. For all intents and purposes, seems like a good pickup for the Rockies, another good pickup to really snag him away from the Mets, kind of in a poach. And another guy with that connection to DePodesta. Now, I believe they were there at the Mets at around the same time. So a guy with a good scouting experience joins the club and hopefully will help in that aspect of acquiring players.
Yeah, this is another really good example, especially for the front office wise. It's been less so with the coaching, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. But for the front office, there has been a lot of Paul DePodesta leveraging his connections, guys he knows from other organizations. Josh Burns he worked extensively with, and Tommy Tanis, however you pronounce it. The two worked together very closely under then GM Sandy Alderson with the New York Mets when they had some of their best drafts. Picking guys like Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil. It's a really good pairing, I think, and I'm honestly surprised that the Mets let him go, though something that has been discussed over the last I've seen in some Mets staples is that he had maybe kind of fallen a little bit out of favor with David Stearns taking over as GM, and when Cohen bought the team, and sort of not quite fitting in the direction that they wanted to go to. But in this circumstance, I see it as their losses are gain,
Yeah.
because he's got such an extensive scouting background and has done a lot of really interesting things in conjunction with DePodesta that I'm excited to have him.
Yeah, because you could maybe even see Noah's expertise is in the scouting, player development, drafting type stuff. Whereas Steve Cohen comes in, it's a lot of we're going to spend big money and bring in whoever we can with big money. And maybe that kind of falls out of favor. Like, no, we don't need to be doing that. We can bring in our own guys. Maybe that's kind of things fall apart. But like I said, well, we'll take that dysfunction and put it to our gain. And I like, here's what DePodesta said to the hiring. We're thrilled to bring Tommy to join our front office. He brings a wealth of knowledge in coaching, amateur scouting, pro scouting, international, and a special assignment work from his time in baseball. And I'm looking forward to using his experience and rare ability to connect with people to help build organizational consistency across all levels of our operation. And so they're hitting a lot of those buzzwords that we've talked about, Evan, of unifying the organization, getting a clear, consistent vision from top to bottom. And, we're hearing things of the scouting, international scouting. So it's checking a lot of boxes, and hopefully that experience will help bring about the change that we're all hoping it will.
Yeah, pretty much everybody they have brought in has experience in scouting, which is really interesting to me.
It's a big focus on player development because, as you've written about, we've talked about, it's probably the Rockies' biggest weakness. They are a draft and assume we can develop organization. They've always been. And now hopefully they're actually going to live up to the draft and develop aspect.
Yeah, actually be who they have said they are for all of this time.
They've talked the talk. Now let's walk the walk. But yeah, exciting winter meetings, though. We didn't get the normal player news. It's not normal player like bombshells from across the league, but nothing for the Rockies. But it was a lot of that coaching stuff, coaching news coming through. And we're all jumping for joy. Like, oh, dang, we got this guy. Oh, this seems pretty cool.
It's the most excited I have seen Rockies fans in a very long time. And I wrote last week on Purple Row. I posed the question: is it okay for Rockies fans to finally have hope? Because for the longest time, the Rockies will say they're going to do something and then not really do it.
Yeah.
But so far this offseason, they're walking the walk. And although it's not a full cleaning of house, for example, Thomas Harding wrote with the Tommy Tanis hire that it is expected that guys like Mark Gustafson and Chris Forbes are expected to stay in their current roles. There's not like a full overhaul of the front office. There is so much new blood coming in that it's hard not to get excited.
Mm-hmm.
And what's also really interesting, we'll talk about this a little bit more later, is we have picked up guys from basically all of the teams that are a bunch of the teams that are represented in new members of the front office or the coaching staff. So, hey, we just brought in an assistant GM who was with the Mets. What a coincidence that one of our minor league phase Rule 5 draft picks was somebody from the Mets organization.
Mm-hmm.
One of the new pitching staff guys from the Tigers, golly gee, well, we used that first round Rule 5 pick to grab somebody from the Tigers.
Yeah. And other grabbing other coaches and stuff from organizations that other GMs have been working with and all this stuff. So plenty to come, but you touched on it. That pitching overhaul with the staff, that was probably the biggest news to come out of winter meetings for the Rockies. And we'll touch on it next here on Affected by Altitude. Back here to Affected by Altitude, Skyler and Evan talking Rockies organizational hires. And coming into the winter meetings, Evan, are really the talk of this offseason from Paul DePodesta, Josh Burns, Walker Monfort, is that the Rockies have to figure out pitching and solving the mystery of pitching in Colorado and on the road has been something that they have just not really put the resources in to figure out. This new regime figures, no, we're going to tackle this thing as best we can. And we knew they were going to figure out a pitching coach and there were other roles. I didn't expect them to get everybody all at once in this big kind of shotgun blast. There's still some other roles they have to fill in, but they made 4 pitching hires during the winter meetings. And Rocky's new pitching coach, I'll run these down, I believe is Alon Leishman. Alon. Kind of looks like Alan, but it's Alon. Leishman, he'll be the pitching coach. Then you have Gabe Rebus will be the assistant pitching coach, and Matt Bushman will be the bullpen coach. And then Matt Daniels has been hired as the organization's director of pitching. And they still have some other minor league pitching coordinator roles to fill out, or other pitching roles. Scott Oberg will remain in his role, but they'll have others. But this top 4 are kind of going to headline figuring out pitching for the Rockies. And Evan, some interesting names in this group, an interesting bunch of guys.
The biggest thing that stands out to me, we kind of felt it coming that there was going to be a big overhaul to the pitching coaching staff and organizational staff, especially with how many people have left over the last year and change. At the beginning of the 2025 season, pitching director Steve Foster stepped down from his role. And then at the end of the 2025 season, we had a bunch of people who parted ways with the organization, as it were. We needed basically a new one of everything. And Paul DePodesta and Josh Burns delivered in, like you said, one big fell swoop. But the thing that stands out the most is that these are all young guys. The oldest of the bunch is only 45. And that's a really big change of pace compared to what we've seen from Rockies coaching staff and player development staff over the last handful of seasons, where they tended to be more in the Bud Black age bracket. And these are all young guys, promising guys from across the league, lots of different organizations represented here. But the big thing that ties them all together is a focus in analytics, player development, player performance, and scouting. And I think probably the most surprising of the bunch in terms of the pitching coach themselves is Alon Leishman, who has only been a major league coach for a handful of seasons at this point. He started as an assistant pitching coach for the Cincinnati Reds in 2023 and then 2024. And then last season, he was the assistant pitching coach with the Miami Marlins. Now, of course, he had plenty of minor league coaching experience. He'd been doing that for 6-7 seasons, starting back in like 2015 or something like that with the Seattle Mariners organization. And he's been all over the place. But the big thing is that he's been coming in as an assistant pitching coach with young pitching staffs and trying new things. And one of those things that stood out was at the end of last season, he was calling pitches from the dugout for that young, inexperienced Marlins pitching staff. And the coaches calling the pitches is not particularly uncommon on a minor league level, especially in the lower parts of the minors. But you never see it in the bigs. But it's really interesting when you look at it as perspective of the Marlins, this very, very young team in the middle of a rebuild with a very interesting analytics-minded, player development-minded assistant coach calling pitches from the dugout. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah, because that was a whole organizational thing that was implemented, and then they started doing that, so that came from up top for them to start doing that. Then there's no guarantee they'll start doing that with the Rockies. Who knows? But yeah, Warren Schaefer was really excited about Leishman. I believe they worked together when Warren was the manager of the Salt River Rafters in the Arizona Fall League. He was the pitching coach. So Warren, Schaefer was really excited about him. Of just a smart dude. I think that's the big thing. Like a smart individual that's keen on trying new things, like you said, and is really minded in communicating information to players, trying to help them develop and get better. So he was just like an assistant pitching coach and pitching director. So he's never been in the full on you're the head honcho role at the big league level. And I think like we've always talked about, like it was even with like Daryl Scott, of how much say do they have when you're kind of the assistant or you have a pitching person above you as a manager or something. And so this will be his first opportunity to really dig in and leave his mark of this is how I want to teach pitching, run my program type of thing. And so awesome. Good on him. He's outside of the organization. Marlins and Reds, they've had some good pitching, members. Regardless of what the results were, there's good promising arms with good development that was happening among them.
Yep.
And
And I
so,
think about him leaving organizations in better spots than he found them, where
yeah.
the Reds pitching staff was pretty lackluster when he was there, but I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence. I mean, it always could be, who knows? But the Reds had a really good year of pitching last year. And the Marlins, when he came in 2024, the Marlins pitching staff was terrible in terms of numbers. They were one of the worst in the league, right above our beloved Colorado Rockies.
And they were missing Sandy and all that stuff.
And they made a big jump forward, still not the best, but they were much improved in comparison. And I don't know. I really like this hire. I think it's probably the most interesting of all the hires.
Mm-hmm.
But I am really excited to see it because he's only 36. Like, this is a guy who age-wise in other organizations would be like around the same age as some of the starters and relievers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting. That he's young, as of his no inexperiences, but that's what's been so interesting along their other hires is that then they're finding guys to kind of complement them, fill in the gaps where maybe where Leachman's lacking. Okay, I'm going to get these other guys to help out, and I think that's where Gabe Rebus, who's in a role that the Rockies have really never had. There's one added pitching role to the staff this year, and it is Gabe Rebus as the assistant pitching coach. Rockies have always had, it's been pitching coach and bullpen coach, or two pitching coaches in the dugout, and one of them's over the bullpen. So this is a brand new role that this team has never had. They've added another voice into the kitchen to help with the pitching and brainstorm that stuff. And
it's probably my favorite hire of the bunch, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he comes over after spending the last 5 seasons as the Tigers' director of pitching. I wonder what amazing pitcher the Tigers have had over the last couple of years. I wonder.
What's his name? Scooby?
I'm sure he has.
Scoobert?
I'm sure he hasn't won any awards or anything. I'm sure he's not going to get traded to the Dodgers, probably.
Please, no.
Oh, it's going to happen, Evan. You're going to like it.
I will
You're
not.
Deal with it.
I will certainly not.
But Rebus also was a pitching coordinator for the Dodgers for 4 seasons, across player development, all that stuff. Really involved with the Dodgers. He was drafted by the Padres back in the day. He has coached at University of Northern Colorado. Bears up there in Greeley, so I'm sure there's a Monfort connection right there too. So Rebus is a very interesting one, and just to see what he can bring to the table as this assistant pitching coach. Now that he's not the director of pitching, but now he's in this even more involved role in the dugout, a really interesting hire.
Yeah, the reason why I like this so much is it's taking a guy, and Rebus is the oldest of the bunch. He's 45. But you're taking this guy who was the director of pitching for the Tigers, and he was a coordinator for the Dodgers, but he has extensive experience in player development, performance, and analytics, and you are taking this guy and you are narrowing his focus to a much more individual basis of working with individual players and working with individual coaches in terms of pitching development and pitching coaching. And I really like that idea of, okay, you've had this role now for the last 5 years of you've got the broad focus. You direct the entire pitching approach for the organization. Take those skill sets and, like I said, narrow the scope. And that's what makes this hire so interesting to me. And especially, like you said, the Rockies have never really had an assistant pitching coach. And to have a guy with a resume like Gabe Rebus in that role, backing up Alan Leishman, is really, really cool.
Yeah, a really good, really interesting hire, and I look forward to seeing what he can do. And and whatnot, helping with the team. And then out in the bullpen, Matt Bushman, he had spent the last 2 seasons as a special advisor of player development in the Cubs system. Before that, he had been with the Blue Jays as a bullpen coach, and where he had also taken on a director of pitching development prior to the 2020 season. He had also worked with the Giants. He was also a Padres draft pick back in the day, interestingly enough. Big career in the minor leagues, and then played very briefly in the big leagues with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So very experienced in the National League West as well in a different capacity. But yeah, Bushman, interesting. Bullpen hires are always interesting. Like, you never know really what to take out of it. But hey, Cubs have had some good bullpen pieces. Toronto's had good bullpen pieces in the past. Hopefully you can continue that on to the Rockies.
Yeah, I think with Bushman, the big thing is it's much less of a splashy hire than some of the other ones for this pitching core. But I like the hire because he has experience with player development and coaching, but he has also been a reliever, especially in the minors. He played 11 minor league seasons across multiple organizations, so he's seen how multiple teams do things, but did make his debut. Like, he's been a big league pitcher, very limited sample size in that. But I think for a young pitching staff like the Rockies, that kind of thing of, hey, I can relate to your experiences in making your debut, in being in the minor leagues, and I've got this focus on player development from multiple organizations. I think that's been the whole thing, and we'll talk more about that with Matt Daniels too. It's across all of these hires. It's guys with a wide scope, a bunch of different teams, experience in the National League West, and a focus on player development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And last one rounding it out here, Matt Daniels. He will be the, like I said, director of pitching for the organization. Spent the last 3 seasons as the pitching development and acquisition specialist for the Minnesota Twins. Prior to that, he had spent 4 seasons in San Francisco as the coordinator of pitching sciences, a role he was first hired for in 2019. Joined the Giants from Driveline Baseball. So a very analytically minded individual. When you've got a guy who's one of his previous roles was director of pitching sciences, okay, I think that kind of sums up what this guy's about and what his expertise is in evaluating and helping players improve. And the Rockies, again, we hear it again, Evan, technology, science, analytics. The Rockies are making that push.
Yeah. The big thing that stands out to me about Daniels is his experience with Driveline, where he was one of Driveline's first full-time employees and one of the first pitchers he worked with there. And this is, I think, really interesting, was one Mr. Adam Ottavino, who has had other links to the Rockies over this offseason here in terms of their front office. This is a really interesting link, and it does kind of make me wonder if we might see Otto at some point come in as some variety of pitching, whatever. But the big thing was that he helped Otto develop some of his cutters and refine some of his other pitches. And this was right when Driveline was becoming a big deal. And now Driveline, a lot of people know about it, but back when it first started, it was much more of a smaller thing, as people were looking into pitching performance sciences and places where you could seek help from outside of your organization to develop your pitches, to work on your pitches. And that's a really cool connection.
Yeah, and I look at all 4 of these hires, and you look, and not a single one of them that was a prestigious big league player or had an extensive big league career. Only one of them really had a big league career, and it was for 3 outings with Bushman. That's it. Otherwise, it's no career minor leaguers or guys that weren't professional baseball players much at all. Where you got Leishman, who played in the World Baseball Classic in 2013, was in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, but he's mostly ever just been a coach throughout his career. Coming out of college and all that stuff. Bullpen coach for Team Israel in 2017 World Baseball Classic. There's guys with different backgrounds, which I think this just feels like a different approach than what we've seen from the Rockies in the past. Like if Bud Black was still manager, he wouldn't want some of these guys probably. He would want guys that have a big league connection to him or experienced. But it just feels like DePodesta. It's like who cares about what your pedigree is? Just because you are a 10-year veteran in the big leagues doesn't mean you're going to be an effective pitching coach. And the exact opposite. Just because you didn't play doesn't mean you can't be a good coach. Now, I see that all the time of players that had look at Warren Schaefer, Evan. Schaefer didn't have much of a career as a professional baseball player in the minor leagues, but he's been a good coach throughout his career because he knows the game. Just because he couldn't execute it doesn't mean he doesn't know how to teach it. Yeah, that's what's interesting to me among these 4 hires is just the backgrounds they come from, and it's just a different kind of background than what the Rockies have operated as.
And so many different teams represented here.
Yeah.
No, that's the biggest thing for me is no internal hires, no internal promotions. Yes, they have kept a couple guys, notably Scott Oberg will be staying on as one of the pitching coordinators. Great. We love Scott Oberg. But for all of these open positions, they're going from outside the organization. And that is, to me, the biggest thing. It is a recognition of, we recognize that everything the Rockies have done over the last 7+ years, all of the insularity, all of the hiring from within, all of the stuff that Dick Monfort would previously say, we're not going to bother trying it because it wouldn't work anyway. That's all out the window.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, we can at least say we tried.
Yeah. And I like too is that I think they had talked about this where they didn't want to make it feel like a forced marriage type of thing, where as soon as they were talking to one of these guys, then they'd talk to somebody else, they'd get those two in connection. So like, Leishman, they'd get him connected with Rebus. And then they make this group chat for these 4 guys to immediately start talking and connect. And then that kind of helps the Rockies like, we can get all these guys.
It's a team effort.
Maybe we could get 1 or 2 of these guys. No, we actually got all 4 of these guys. And I think that goes back to the collaborative thing. DePodesta got them in contact with each other, talk to each other, share ideas. We're open to everything on the table. I think it was Leishman had asked, is this sort of thing on the table? And they're like, yes, everything's on the table. We're going to try anything and everything.
Yeah. Would you like ideas it to be on the table?
Yeah.
Let us put this on the table for you.
And so, with these hires and so things we've talked about, it shows DePodesta is, carrying on his thing of being open-minded. Everything's on the table because it needs to be. Why should the Rockies have any preconceived notions that have to stay with the organization? What they've been doing for 30+ years hasn't worked. So throw everything at the wall. Experiment. This is a time for the Rockies to get wacky with some stuff, and we're actually prepared for it this time. We're like, heck yeah, let's try it. It can't be any worse than what we've done.
Take that big pot of spaghetti and huck it at the wall, baby.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. And then RJ Petit will eat it because he's a growing boy.
He needs his vitamins and minerals.
Turn into Alan from Smiling Friends.
I just wanted my cheese.
Finally.
Man, he is so big. Every picture I see of RJ Petit, he is such an imposing figure on the mound.
Because who's the tallest? Well, we'll head into a break here. We'll get the answer when we come back. Evan, who is the tallest player on the Rockies currently listed? That's what we'll find out. But we'll take a break here. When we come back, that exciting answer of height, but also a new hitting coach has joined the team. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. Evan should hopefully, he's looking it up, of who is currently the tallest player on the Rockies current roster.
At the end of the 2025 season, the tallest player for the Colorado Rockies was McCade Brown at 6'6".
It's got him by 2 inches.
By 2 inches. I do think I read somewhere, I'm trying to remember, that when he makes his first appearance, RJ Petit will if not being the tallest, he will tie for the tallest pitcher in Rockies history.
There you go. Big, tall fella. Imagine if he was a hitter, though. Got Aaron Judge in the box.
I mean, let's make him a two-way player.
Yeah.
What was he doing in college?
He was probably pitching.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was exclusively a pitcher in college. With Charleston Southern.
Charleston Southern. Having a mint julep at Charleston Southern.
What is a mint julep?
Some
This is a great start to this third segment. Dead air, jokes not landing, and talking about tall people.
Also, yeah, looks like that was exclusively a pitcher. No batting, so that's too bad. Oh, well. Hey. He's a big man. He can carry me in his arms, rock me to sleep. If we don't call him the Mountain this season, if he doesn't have a nickname already, and if it's not the Mountain, we've failed as a Rocky society.
The Rocky Mountain?
We can just call him the Mountain. Any Game of Thrones fans out there? I'm not one. I've never seen that show. But yeah, interesting stuff. But one last coaching hire here, Evan, we can touch on. The Rockies have a hitting coach. They're technically fifth within a calendar year. From Hensley Mullins to Clint Hurdle, then to Nick Wilson and Jordan Pacheco.
Yeah,
and now
right.
They have an official new hitting coach. They named Brett Pill. They're going to take their medicine. Brett Pill as the hitting coach. He comes over to the Rockies after 6 seasons in the Dodgers organization. I wonder if he knows Josh Burns at all. Was the hitting coordinator from 23. Most recently was the hitting coordinator from 2023 to 25. And then before that had been just a minor league hitting coach. Before his time with the Dodgers, he was an international scout for the Kia Tigers of the KBO. Played with the Giants, was a first-round pick, or a first-year player pick out of in the 7th round by the Giants back in the day. Played in the minor leagues time, and then was part of 3 major league seasons from 2011 to 2013 in 48 games, and appearing in 48 games during the Giants' 2012 World Series championship run. So, yeah. And then he finished his career playing in the KBO. But overall, another guy with the background of scouting and player development joining the big league staff.
Yeah, and this might be a tough pill to swallow. But I think picking a guy from the Dodgers who have been a hitting factory over the last several seasons and throughout most of their time, but especially over the last 5-6 years, for as long as Brett Pill has been there, they've been churning out prospects that can hit in addition to the free agents that they bring in. And I think this is another example of, like you mentioned, this is a guy who worked under Josh Burns, and I'm willing to bet you Josh Burns was telling DePodesta, was telling the other guys in the organization that this is a guy that we should go after. And while, like with many of the pitching coaches, not exactly a prestigious professional career, 11 total professional seasons and only a handful of big league appearances. And, he keeps getting mentioned being part of that 2012 World Series team for the Giants, but he wasn't on the playoff roster for the Giants that year.
He just gets the ring, baby.
Did some good work in Korea for a couple seasons. And I think it's interesting the fact that, the Kia Tigers liked him enough that at the end of the season, they kept him on his staff. And, what's even more interesting, I saw a Korean publication talking about this hire. How often do you get to see the Colorado Rockies in international news outlets?
Yeah, but it's interesting, an interesting hire. But again, like you said, it comes over from the Dodgers, and you can just trust the infrastructure that team has. Well, you expect they have had good people and good developmental people. And now hopefully he can bring that experience over and bring it to the big league roster. It sounds like Nick Wilson and Jordan Pacheco will stay with the organization. Exact roles, whether it be on the big league staff or back down in the minors, but they pretty much have roles that the team has for them. We just don't know what they are exactly. But awesome that those two get to stick around. I think they did as good as they could this last season. We saw some improvements in some areas that the team had struggled with. They were learning on the job, learning on the fly, got thrown into the out of the frying pan into the fire. But now you got Pill coming in, and again, it's interesting that another outside hire for the hitting coach. No, it's not like, oh, Daryl Scott, he's been in the organization forever, or this guy's been in the organization forever. And then we're going to bring in Hensley Mullins type thing. But it's, no, everybody's new. The only person so far who's been with this organization is Warren Schaefer. And that's perfectly fine. It's a diverse coaching staff that's shaping up. And it's fun to see. And
Yeah.
not just the diverse, but diverse backgrounds that are also very similar.
And I think the Rockies did a smart thing with, they could have just given the job to Nick Wilson or to Jordan Pacheco or to both of them. And instead they chose to go with an outside hire as their primary hitting coach. But then it was the same where if Warren Schaefer hadn't been given the position of manager, they were going to offer him a position in the thing. We like you. We think you did good work. We want you to stay. And if so, here are potential roles. And I would not be surprised if the two of them end up as the assistant hitting coaches under Brett Pill. It's either going to be that or one of them will probably go back to AAA to be the hitting coach there. But it is refreshing. We've said it so many times. It is so refreshing to see this team casting such a wide net from around Major League Baseball, from around baseball as a whole, to bring in people from outside the organization.
Yeah. And Brett Pill, 41 years old. So another, relatively young guy. This is a young staff. All things considered, this is a young staff. And we'll still see, I think, a bench coach still needs to be announced, your base coaches, and then maybe some assistant coaching type stuff with the hitting coaches like you mentioned. But all in all, it's still a young crew, which is it's the nice thing, because we've that where the team was just so old. You would bring in these older coaches because they played the game right back in the day. They have that extensive experience. No, they played the game. But no, these guys are all successful. No, you can look at the minor league hitting for the Dodgers over the last couple seasons. Oh, I'm pretty sure they've typically hit pretty well in the minors. And so it's diverse. They're young. It's young blood with some palpable excitement. I think Pill is just another element of this. There's a surging excitement bubbling underneath the Rockies just because a new direction. There is change, and change is exciting. Now, if it all pan out, we still have to see, but the excitement's there.
It's led to this phenomenal change in tone.
Yeah.
In a lot of Rockies spaces over the last few weeks, where a lot of the misery, a lot of the doomerism is gradually getting replaced with things like excitement and hope and a belief that maybe the Rockies can become a good baseball team. And of course, that belief is grounded in the idea that, I've had this conversation many times, the Rockies are going to be bad next year. Like, there's no getting around it. You can't immediately go from losing 119 games to a playoff contender with the amount of work that the Rockies have to do inside the organization. There is so much work that needs to be done. But the feeling that in a couple of years, this tree that we are planting now could bear fruit, and the Rockies could be a competitive baseball team, which is not something they've really been. And you think about all the times where they've been competitive. Yeah, you had 2017 and 2018. That was almost 10 years ago, Rocktober was almost 20 years ago. And in between all of these short-lived playoff runs that didn't end in a ring, there's been nothing. And so
The Rockies,
now,
I was going to say, the Rockies only have one playoff win since clinching the National League title in 2007. They have one win since then. One playoff win.
it's
And
not great.
they barely got that win. So,
But to think about the glimmer of hope, the ember that's being kindled that I'm seeing on Reddit, on social media, in the comment section on Purple Row, where we're getting like conversations about, well, what if we did this? And oh, this could be interesting. And people actually talking about the Rockies as if what they are doing matters, because so much of things over the last couple of seasons, last year especially, has been the doomerism. It doesn't matter. We're terrible. We're always going to be terrible. The Rockies are a joke. It feels different right now. It feels nice. And I think a lot of where that is stemming from is it really does feel, with all of these moves right now, that Dick Monfort has taken a step back. Because I think of all of these moves, and they are moves that Dick Monfort would never tolerate in previous seasons. Words said out of his own mouth. Yeah, sure, we could bring in people from outside the organization, but they wouldn't have any good ideas. And if they did, we've tried them already and they wouldn't work.
yeah. Don't worry, Evan. He's focused on ruining baseball for everybody after this season, so you can't lose to the Dodgers if you don't play baseball at all.
Yippee.
Yippee. But yeah, there's a palpable excitement, and it's just, it could still all crash and burn just like everything else does, but it's something different after we've been, the Rockies are trying to break the cycle of insanity, because it's been 30 plus years of doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. Now, is there still plenty that this team needs to do this offseason? Yes. And we probably won't get to those moves. It'll leave us some stuff to talk about. But, of moving players, bringing in guys, and trying to, the goal is always to win sooner than later. And, these, our coaching staff, you could implement stuff a lot quicker than you think. I think players are ready and willing and hungry for that type of information, and will eat it up as soon as it's available to them. It's just a matter of the Rockies implementing that throughout the system. But you could overhaul things, and you could turn this team around a lot quicker than you think. You could get 20 more wins. You could get eventually, get under 100 losses. Okay, that's a good step. Then you can win more the next year, type of thing. So I think a turnaround could happen a lot quicker than we think. It doesn't have to be the long slog rebuild, one little piece at a time. No, you can do it all pretty quickly, and turn things around. And I think that's the sense of urgency and change for the Rockies that's coming. Hopefully, at least they're laying the foundation for it, and that would be very nice.
Yeah, I think not an unreasonable expectation would be 2028 or 2029. The Rockies could be a competitive team. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series, but a team that can at least hang in there for most of the season. A team that's not going to lose 90 plus, 100 plus losses every season.
Yeah. The goal is 500, in the words of Dick Monfort.
You got to interpolate those numbers.
But there's plenty of other stuff that could still happen with that roster. They still got some coaching stuff to finalize, but it's really getting to a point where now the roster has to start getting some impact. Instead of subtraction, start getting some actual additions. I don't really count the minor league contracts with non-roster invites. Yeah, Nicky Gonzalez, good for you. Nick Gonzalez, good for you, but what are you going to do for me? You're a middle infielder.
You mean Nicky Lopez?
Yeah, Nicky Lopez Gonzalez he's the one for the Pirates.
And Chad Stevens.
Yeah.
Who,
It's like,
fun fact, went to the same high school as Michael Tolia.
There you go. Oh no, Tolia's revenge.
He's a sleeper agent.
The password is Big Mongoose. Big Mike.
That's why they said it all the time. They're trying to activate him.
Oh.
It just didn't work. His conditioning had worn off.
I just realized we get a year that we don't have to hear Big Mike every second of every broadcast.
We sign someone who is also named Mike and who is also large.
No, there's nobody there. Oh, thank goodness.
No more Big Mike. Also, still has not been signed. And honestly, I know we're pretty much out of time, but it says a lot about the Rockies player evaluation and player development that Drew Romo, as much as we love him, was claimed off waivers, already been designated for assignment. Ryan Rollison claimed off waivers, designated for assignment.
And got picked up by the White Sox.
And Michael Tolia has not been signed.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you're kind of the bottom of the depth chart for other teams. Like they could pick them up and then sneak them through into the minor league system, but if they're not the prestiged one, pretty easy to get off those rosters and make room for other players. But interesting stuff. But an interesting past winter meetings for the Rockies. A lot of coaching hires. Not too shabby. I'd give them a good grade, a good passing grade.
Yeah, as would I. And I'm excited to see what they do over the next week, because I do think there'll be some things that'll get announced over the next week.
Yeah, because there's also rumors flying around. Brenton Doyle, does he get moved? Teams are interested. They keep calling about him. The Rockies gamble on that to try and get some pitching. Who knows? Oh, there's a lot to figure out for them. A lot to figure out with pitching strategy. Are we going to use openers? Is Jimmy Herget really an answer in the starting rotation? All kinds of stuff that we'll have opportunities to talk about in the weeks to come. Maybe we can hit up one of our buddies, get him on a show here to talk to us about it. We'll see. But that's going to bring this episode to an end. Evan, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at evanlang27.bsky.social. Would love to hear from you. There's been a lot of Blue Sky picking up steam as a platform for sports, especially baseball. It's been nice to see. You can also find me over on Purple Row, writing your Monday Rock Piles. And we are just about to finish our Ranking the Rockies. The final two come out this week. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. If it has podcasts, we're probably available on it. You can also catch the video version of the show over on YouTube. Remember that you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on social media platforms as well, including YouTube at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop.
I need to do a little giveaway to get more followers and send off one of the random things Evan has in his collection.
Why is it got to be something from my collection?
Because you're the one who has all the stuff.
You could change that.
No, I'm poor.
So am I. I just make irresponsible decisions. Here, you can have this. You can have this.
There you go. Hey, people would want it.
Skyler, where can folks find you at?
Oh, around.
Cool. Well, that's going to do it here for us on Affected by Out.
You can always find me right here in your heart. But you can find me over on the Twitters at Skyler Timmons or over on Blue Sky, Timmons13.bsky.social. I don't really post much on Blue Sky. I pretty much more so run the Rocky Mountain Rooftop account over there. But yeah, give any of those a follow. Please. We're begging you. Make us more popular. But yeah, writing Wednesday Rock Piles over at purplerow.com. The year is almost over, and the holidays are almost here. We're
crazy.
one step closer to Rockies baseball.
It is crazy to think about. We are roughly 2 months away from pitchers and catchers reporting.
Be here before you know it. And pretty much, we're probably giving up on doing that award show. There's just been too much to talk about.
Which is a good thing. Like,
yeah,
we'd love to do our award show, but the fact that there is actually this much to talk about in December is a joy.
Yeah, because it wouldn't take us long to say, oh, Hunter Goodman's MVP.
Pitcher of the year is Jimmy Herget.
Yeah, that's pretty easy stuff. So, no, and I can't think of funny stuff. So,
best mustache, Zach Agnos.
Mm-hmm.
Worst mustache, Jordan Beck. Good. Sorry, Jordan.
Zach Fiends was pretty bad too.
It was. It wasn't great.
There we go. That's the debate. Who had a worse little cheddar stash?
Who had the worst mustache?
Yeah, the pale little rat stash. Oh well. But until next time, this has been Affected by Altitude. As always, we appreciate you tuning in, following along with us, and our silly little shenanigans. As always, leave us a comment down below. What's on your holiday wish list to Santa that you want the Rockies to do? Let us know. But until next time, I'm Skyler, that's Evan. Hit him with it.
Farewell.
Bye-bye. This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.